Hi, I'm Kelly,
I'm Allison.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Kristen.
and this is Fear and Wine. Hello, welcome to Fear and Wine. We are a podcast about horror TV shows, movies, and more. And today we are going to cover episode 2 of Lovecraft Country. It's titled Whitey's on the Moon. And
That's funny.
last episode, Kristen gave us a background into H.P. Lovecraft and how he's this big sci-fi writer and kind of influenced a lot of other sci-fi writers and stories. So today's question is, what is or are your favorite science fiction story? Or stories, I guess, because I chose 2 personally. And it doesn't have to be necessarily books. It could be movies, TV shows, anything that's the sci-fi story that you love.
Sci-fi is like a really big. It's broad because there can be stories that maybe have sci-fi elements that you wouldn't necessarily think of.
Right, like
being
anything
sci-fi.
future or dystopian, that's all considered sci-fi. If
Yeah.
it hasn't happened yet, but
Yeah.
that would still be considered science fiction. So
I'll go first this time, if
Okay.
you want, because I immediately knew. And my mind went, and this is old school kind of, but my mind immediately went to one of my favorite short stories by Ray Bradbury called All Summer in a Day. And the
Ooh.
reason why this sticks out so much to me is that, again, in the 80s, when I was a kid, there was this like HBO special or something that they did of this story, and it's about this group of children who live on Venus because the earth became uninhabitable and
Oh.
they only get one day of sunshine the entire year. And so that day they let the children go outside and play in the sun, and they get to experience everything that happens in one day. The flowers bloom and die and everything, and they lock this one little girl into a closet during that one day because she remembers being on earth and remembers what the sun looks like, and they're jealous or angry, so they lock her away. And that story just stuck with me. That story and the HBO version of it. That I even when I taught middle school, I made them watch it and read that story, and they're like, "Why are you depressing us like this?" I'm like, "I'm so sorry."
I've never heard this
love it.
story
Me
before.
neither, but it
Oh,
sounds
it's so
good.
It
It's so good.
does.
And then one other story is they didn't make any movie of it, but it's called The Veld, Veldt. It's also by
Okay.
Ray Bradbury, and it's a story about this family where the parents basically there's this room that it's a nanny where they can go anywhere that they can imagine. So they can go to Paris and walk around the streets of Paris, and it's like a virtual reality thing. So the parents are basically using this room as a nanny instead of paying any attention to their kids, and the kids end up creating this veld. A veld is like a area of a savanna where lions and animals live in Africa, and so they end up making it so when the parents walk in to finally check on them that they get murdered immediately by the animals. So
Oh my gosh.
it's a great story. I highly recommend it. The Veld.
Oh, I want to read both of these.
I
Cool.
know.
Very cool.
All right, those are mine. Sorry.
Okay, I can go.
Sure.
If you guys
Okay.
want. Okay, so I have 2 as well, and one of them is a book series that I've mentioned to you guys before, but I never really explained what it's about. And it is the Unwind series by Neil Shusterman. And the basis of it is America has gone through a second civil war, and the reason that they fought is because of abortion. So it's pro-life versus pro-choice has caused this bloody battle. And so when the war ends, they have this constitutional amendment to settle the war, and it's called the Bill of Life. And the Bill of Life says that human life may not be touched or interfered with from the moment of conception until the child turns 13. But then from the ages of 13 to 18, parents can choose to retroactively abort the child,
What?
but only on the condition that the child's life does not technically end. And so thus the procedure of unwinding is created. This isn't a giveaway because this is what you learn on the very first page.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Everything I explained. It's really the process of unwinding and how these kids that are caught in this age group deal with it, and how some parents even, like a thing that happens in this situation, there's a tithe, and some kids are just born to then be unwound. Like their parents just have them knowing that that's what's going to happen, no matter what happens. And a lot of people decide that my kid needs to prove themselves, and then if they haven't done anything or look like they're going to amount to anything, we're just going to get rid of them.
Oh.
So
wild.
and so what
This-
it's really cool, but basically what unwinding is, because I know that sounds weird, but you probably figured it out, it's just a surgical procedure where the child's body parts and organs, tissue, everything has to be harvested and donated to others that will need them in life-saving procedure. So therefore every part of you lives on in another person.
Oh.
So therefore both sides are satisfied. You're not really killing a person because they're keeping someone else alive, but
Mm-hmm.
you're getting rid of the child that you didn't want.
That's
That's
messed up.
fascinating.
It's
It reminds me of
fascinating.
Tender as the. Did you ever read Tender as the Flesh?
No, but I'm going to write that one down too.
Write that down because it reminds me of this a little bit, but in a grosser way. But you might,
This
yeah.
one isn't gross. It's just very.
Oh,
Yeah.
that one's gross
great.
because it has to do with
Great
harvesting
premise.
people for meat when no more meat left, kind of thing. So
Yikes.
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then my other one is a short story as well, and it is The Jaunt by Stephen King. Do you know that one?
I don't.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so it's in
Write it
the
down,
it's in the book Skeleton Key, or at least my copy. That's where I found it. You can probably find it separately, but it's a short story. In the future, humans have figured out how to safely travel to different planets, and they can do it through teleportation. So yay, teleportation is finally a thing.
Yay. My favorite.
And they've done all these tests, and it used to be very dangerous, but they figured out the way to survive teleportation and to do it perfectly safely is you have to undergo anesthesia first. You have to be put to sleep. You cannot be awake during the jaunt. And so it's the story of this dad and his wife and kids, and they're getting ready to do the kids are getting ready to do their first ever jaunt to Mars. So the dad is telling them their story because their kids are nervous about it. And he's like, oh, this is how they learned the process, and here's some backstories of where they tested it with animals, blah, blah, blah. And he warns them the horrors of what will happen when some people jaunt without being put to sleep first. If you stay awake while you jaunt, basically what you experience is an eternity of waking nothingness, and you go insane. And so the question is, how long is an eternity? Longer than you think.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of, so that's how people weren't surviving. Their minds would just go crazy because they lived over and over
Oh, I need to.
during those
Ooh, I don't like
seconds, yeah.
that.
Definitely, I'm putting that.
That one freaked me out.
You like that
Mhm.
whole Skeleton Key book, or is it a good?
It's
That's
pretty
the
good.
story?
I've read that one. I read That's Where the Monkey Is. That one that
Okay.
they just
Oh.
made a movie of. I think I haven't seen the movie, but it seems to be very different in the book versus the
Okay.
movie.
That sounds like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, it does.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's why I like it.
Crazy.
Yeah, Stephen King is a really good sci-fi writer. I like his
Yeah.
stuff. But those are my two.
Allison, you want to go?
Sure.
Okay.
As I said in the last episode, I don't read, and you could probably only count the amount of books that I have read on both hands. But 3 of those books would be The Hunger Games, and I actually really loved those.
That's my daughter's favorite series.
Love
so
it.
Hey, mine too.
There's more than 3 books, you know.
No, yeah, but I only read the 3 main
Oh,
ones.
okay.
But you would think that would be like, oh yeah, you like reading now. No, it ended there. But
Started and
I
ended.
really enjoyed the books, which made me enjoy. I actually think I enjoyed the books more than the movies, and that's
Mhm.
very rare for me to say that.
That's
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, I was talking to Allison about those books and movies the other day because I just finished reading the 5th one that had recently come out, and I'm like, this is great. I love all the Hunger Games stories. Can we just get the beginning part though? Like what led
Cool
to
prequel.
the
Yeah.
attack?
Yeah.
To the war, like we keep starting and the Hunger Games are already going.
Right.
So,
Cool. Yeah, give
Yeah.
me
I
the
need to read the
backstory.
rest of them. I think I actually will, just to keep up with it, since I had to read the other ones. I was like,
Yeah,
Might as
so
well
when the
finish
movies
it
come
up.
out, you'll be able to compare them.
Well, and I told myself, because what was that one with Rachel? Which one is that?
The
one,
Ballad
Taylor?
of Songbird and Snakes.
I won't watch it until I read it. So if I miss all these movies, it's because I haven't read the books. I'm trying to
You
force
need a
myself to
vacation,
do
so
it.
you have a place to just lay and read. That's all.
Yeah, I'm trying to force myself to do it. So I'm like, okay, if you really want to see these movies, you need to read these books, and then maybe I'll read some more.
I can loan you. I can loan them to you because Riley has them all.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Well, I'll give my answer, but you guys are mine sounds boring now by comparison because my selection was not a book, and I was trying to think really hard because I don't know that I typically gravitate towards sci-fi other than Godzilla. I love Godzilla. I love Godzilla. But so I settled on E.T. because everybody loves E.T. I mean, it's just your quintessential alien story.
I have such a soft spot in my heart for ET. So
Yeah.
believe me, you.
It
are speaking
terrified
the
me as a
language.
child.
Oh, he terrified you.
But
Yeah.
it did, and then it made you cry. You used to cry all the time when you would watch
It's
ET.
Oh
Same.
yeah, I know. I
Oh,
think it
that-
was just the image of the alien that just scared me.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really that cute when you actually break
When
it
he was
down. He's
dying,
kind of
though, and
gross
turning-
looking.
looking
But
like a
Yeah,
white
that's
piece
what
of
made
poop.
me cry.
I felt so bad. Yeah. I cried in
Oh,
front of my
yeah.
whole class at school, and I remember
Yeah.
I never forget that because they made fun of me.
Aww.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I couldn't help myself. I think I cry every time I watch that movie. So
Yeah. Oh, that part. Yeah, that part where where
Mhm.
he's sick and he's all gray is so
right.
sad. But another one that I did consider also, which I don't know if this technically falls into the sci-fi category, but Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
I
Mind.
love that. Yeah,
with
it
Jim
does.
Carrey. Yeah.
I haven't
thought
seen
that.
that.
No, really?
You haven't?
Mm-mm.
Well,
Mm-mm.
yeah, he
Kelly.
basically goes through a breakup and they start to want to have their memories of each other erased, but they lose the good memories too. And it's kind of a weird movie,
It's in my
but
top 10 movies of all times, actually.
yeah, it's
Oh.
a good movie, and
Mhm.
I like him in serious roles. I think
Me too.
he's good in serious
And
roles. So
she's
I
so
don't know,
good
maybe.
too in that movie. What's her?
Oh,
Kate
Kate
Winslet.
Winslet.
Oh my gosh, she's
Yes,
so good in that role.
she's amazing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, and it makes you think like, well, would I want to lose all of the memories that I have if I
Just to
had
lose the
that
bad ones, yeah.
opportunity? Yeah, just to lose the bad ones and yeah, but that's a good one.
Oh.
So I don't know. I mean,
I-
obviously that's not a technology that we have, so I guess that technically could
Oh
be
yeah, it's for sure.
considered
That could be a Black
sci-fi.
Mirror
Oh, for sure.
episode as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. But the stories you guys told sound super interesting. I would
See,
be
you just didn't have
interested in reading
teachers
some
that
of
picked
those.
out good short stories for you in
I
school, I think.
No, I guess I
Nobody
didn't.
actually like played or had you read something that was interesting or
Yeah.
caught your
I mean,
attention,
we
maybe.
read like
Yeah.
Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, that's Ray
Is
Bradbury.
that
He's
considered?
my favorite.
Yeah.
He was the one to me, like he is my favorite, probably sci-fi
Mhm.
writer of all
Mhm.
times. So
I love a good short story. Like few things I will pick up an anthology book from a writer I love in a second
Yeah.
because I don't know, I just like that quick little
Mhm.
like beginning, middle, and end of a story. Yeah.
same.
But
What
you
about
always
wasn't
have.
there a Ray Bradbury like show in the 80s or 90s? Like
Was
Ray
there?
Bradbury Presents, or was that it was an
Oh
Alfred Hitchcock
no.
Presents, but then I swear there was some Ray Bradbury show and they turned his short stories into episodes of like television. I'm gonna need to look
Well,
because
if there
I
wasn't, there
swear
should
that
be.
existed.
Oh, you know what else was a good one?
What?
Xenon Girl of 21st Century. That was a good sci-fi movie. I think everybody needs to watch it at least once.
Was
The
that a
Disney-
movie or a TV show?
No, it was a
Disney.
Disney Channel original movie.
Okay.
Guys,
Listen,
the Ray
you guys
Raven
laugh.
Simone
Theater.
was in it. I think it
You
was
guys
good.
laugh, but those Disney Channel movies,
Right?
they
Some
were
of
good.
them,
They're
and some
good.
of them will really get to you. Like
They
the
will.
Color of Friendship, that one got to me.
Oh.
And that
Yeah.
one where Shia LaBeouf played an autistic. What was that one?
Wait, what is
that
this
one
show?
really.
What are
That
you
one.
talking-
I don't remember that one.
Oh, I'll find it and I'll
yeah.
let you know. That one
I know
got-
which one
Please
from. I
do.
can't think of it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
the
gotta
Ray
go back and
Bradbury
revisit
Theater
the
ran from
Disney.
1985 to 1992. There were
Oh,
6
so it was a
seasons.
TV show? Ray
Yeah.
Bradbury Theater?
Yep, there's 6
Okay.
seasons, sci-fi.
Oh wow.
I'm gonna see if I can find it streaming anywhere and
Yeah.
check it out maybe.
You guys always have interesting stuff that I want to go back and look more into.
I know.
That's
That's
weird
why I'm
stuff.
always writing stuff down and
Yeah.
then
Me
I
too.
try to like when we have cool discussions like that, post them.
For
Oh, it's on
sure.
Prime. The Ray Bradbury Theater is on
Oh, okay.
Prime.
I'm gonna have to
Mhm.
check that out.
Me
True
too.
Confessions. That's what it's called, Leah. If you ever.
Okay, I'll
go see it.
They
I'll
did
write
the
that one down.
Veld. Huh.
Oh, they
The
did
one
your
I was talking
story.
about with the lions killing the parents.
Yeah.
It is an episode of the Ray Bradbury Theater.
Oh, I think that's Kristen's afternoon. She's gonna be taking in some Ray Bradbury.
Yeah. I hope the production value is good.
It's going to be terrible, but that's fine. Drew
okay.
Barrymore. Oh, good actors. We've got William Shatner, Drew Barrymore, Elliot Gould, Jeff Goldblum, Peter O'Toole, Shelley Duvall.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
My afternoon set.
Jeff
Yeah.
Goldblum. Speaking of
Right?
sci-fi, I remember watching The
Fly.
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 Yes.
Ugh,
Oh,
That
yeah.
scared me when I was a
that
kid.
was so gross. It was
so
scary, but
super
it was so
gross.
gross.
But I
love
love
him.
Jeff Goldblum.
Good old
too.
Cronenberg.
Whoa. Me too.
All right, well, we will get started with the episode then, unless anybody has any other recommendations.
Nope.
I mean, I
All
always
right.
have recommendations, but I'll be quiet.
I'm sure we'll have other questions, but we'll get to do.
Yeah. Put them in the
many
chat.
more.
Put them in the chat.
We found the perfect pairing for this episode, which features a very famous garden paradise, to be the Vines and Vibes limited edition hurricane relief wine from Davis Family Vineyards. You've heard us recommend wines from this vineyard before, as they are one of my personal favorites. Vines and Vibes is a 2019 Grenache, which is a grape varietal that is often found in red blends. This is a medium-bodied red wine with alluring aromas of rose petals and red fruits. The winemakers at Davis Family Vineyards found this to be the perfect grape to honor and represent the Asheville, North Carolina community and the surrounding areas of western North Carolina, including their beautiful wine country, that were devastated by Hurricane Helene in 2024. 100% of the profits from this wine go to the region's relief efforts. This wine pairs well with grilled meats, spicy stews, and Mediterranean dishes. Enjoy! For more information about us and all of the wines that we feature, visit our website at fearandwine.com. And make sure you follow Fear and Wine wherever you listen to podcasts so that you don't miss a new episode. And if you like us, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. Thanks. Episode 2 of Lovecraft Country is called Whitey's on the Moon.
That sounds
And
fun.
it's actually, I guess we find out at the end that it's named after a song, or not a song, but like a spoken word
poem, yeah,
something
Oh, okay.
to music, and it's called Whitey's on the Moon. I guess it's a poem, and then they put music behind it.
Oh,
Called
Yeah.
There seems to be a
Whitey's
lot
on
of
the Moon.
poems throughout. I mean, I don't know if there are more throughout the series, but so far we've encountered a few poems.
I think so. I think they tried to work a lot of literature with this
Mhm.
being such a famous writer of literature that all these stories are based off on. So maybe I think
Right.
they tried to intertwine a lot of Black literature with it
Mhm.
in making this. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So episode 2 opens and George Freeman, well, actually, let's back up real quick. So if you remember last time where we left them, they were in the woods, they attacked by all those monsters. They had killed all the policemen, the monsters did. And then just before they were going to attack them, they hear that dog whistle noise, and then all the monsters just ran away and disappeared.
Mhm.
And then and made it over to this house, that big, huge building.
Right.
And it's going to be called, we found out it's called the Lodge, but it's some giant, it looks like almost like a hotel. It's this
Yeah.
huge mansion.
And
Okay.
the guy said that they had been waiting for him.
Yes. Yeah, this
Mhm.
blonde guy, or as Kristen described him as Aryan looking. This blonde guy opens the door and he said, "Oh, we've been waiting for you." And so that's how it ended. Okay. So episode 2 opens, and George Freeman, and that's Courtney B. Vance's character, he throws open the double doors of his bedroom and he dances out of his room, and he has this big smile on his face, and he's dancing to the Jeffersons theme song, Moving On Up. And he is just loving his life because they are living in this mansion right now, and he has this huge palatial room, and it's just amazing. And then it cuts over to Leti, and she's in her big bedroom in the mansion, and she's dancing. You know, the music's playing, so we're going to check in on all of them. So she's dancing, and she opens up her wardrobe to a bunch of fabulous clothes and dresses, and she is very happy. All happen to be her size, of course.
Ooh, of course.
Yes. And so in George's room, he is his room has like a little library section, so he is just in bliss because there's just all the books, and he notices there are all these books he's always wanted to read or his favorite. So it's very tailored to each person's thing and what makes them happy.
Yeah.
So the Jefferson theme song ends, and we see Tic, and he is just sitting on the edge of the chair in his bed, and he looks upset. So he's not really enjoying his big room as much as the other two. And he goes and looks out of the window, and the camera pulls back to the outside of the mansion, and all we can see is this huge home in the middle of nowhere, and it's surrounded by dense wood. So it like pans all the way out so you can try and see where they are, and there's nothing else around. Back in the house, George and Tic hear an alarm going off, and they don't know where it's coming from, but they don't see anyone around, and they're not sure if they should be concerned or not. And just then, Leti pops out of her room, and she's in this very stylish fox hunting outfit that she looks fabulous, but it makes absolutely no sense because I don't think they're going fox hunting, but that's what she's dressed like. If you want to like pictures, like got the tails and the boots, like she's
Right.
heading on a fox hunt. Yeah. And then that's when the blonde butler guy, William, shows up, and he lets them know that the bell is for lunch and to follow him to the veranda so they can eat. As they walk, they see these creepy paintings of angels and things on the wall, kind of like when you go to a museum and you just see all those old paintings that people used to do that were always like religious, but it always showed like something like awful going on. They used to do
Mhm.
like really horrific.
Like beheadings
Paintings.
and stuff.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
just, and it was very strange art. Yeah. And so you see all these paintings, and Tic asks William when his father is expected to be coming back from Boston. And William says, I've told you all I know. So at some point, they told him that Montrose is in Boston, and that's why he's not at the house. And they said that he left to see a lawyer, and Miss Braithwaite 2 nights ago went with him, and they didn't say when they would return. So George asks, "But we were expected." And William tells them, yes, Mrs. Braithwaite made it very clear that he was to take care of them and treat them like family. So Tic asks what hotel his father is in Boston, and he wants to call him. And William tells him that there are no phones in this house. He tells Tic that he doesn't know what business Mr. Braithwaite and Tic have together, but he's just following his instructions. So they then pass this huge portrait. They're kind of upstairs, like on an upper level, and it looks out into this like little mezzanine. I guess a mezzanine because it has like a balcony.
Uh-huh.
And they pass this huge portrait of a man resembling to me a young Donald Sutherland. And he's wearing these long paisley pattern wizard's robes with a hood. And he's got like the sash draped over him. It's kind of like when preachers wear, I don't know what that thing is called, but the thing with like pictures and symbols that they'll wear around their neck, and it like drapes I don't know.
Like
I don't know.
like at graduations?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, something like that draped over, it, and it has all these different symbols on it, and it's like a mix between like a Girl Scout sash with badges and like the preacher's thing.
Donald Sutherland died?
I don't know.
That's what Google's saying. I had to see who that was.
He did?
Snow.
He did? No.
It says June 20th, 2024.
A whole year ago?
Really?
That's Snow, right? From
That's
the
President
Hunger
Snow.
Games.
Yeah.
My bad. I'm sorry. I had to see who it was, and that's what pops up.
The way you said it, I was like, did I just say Donald Sutherland died?
No, I just didn't know. I had to see who you were talking about, and I didn't know. I'm sorry for the disruption. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, yes, that's what he looks like, a younger Donald Sutherland in that portrait. It's not him, but that's just what it looked like to me.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So William tells him that the guy in the portrait is a distant cousin of Samuel Braithwaite's, and Samuel is the man who owns the home currently. And he is an original founder and owner of the lodge, and his name is Titus Braithwaite. He built the retreat so that he and his fellow lodge members could dine in private. George asks how Titus made his fortune, and William tells him in shipping, and Leti quickly whispers to George that's code for slaves. William tells that Titus was known to be very kind to people who worked for him, and many mourned him after the Great Fire, and that's how Titus died. What they are in now is a replica of the original lodge, which burned down during the autumnal equinox in 1833. So they just rebuilt it exactly as it was, but the original one is gone. It killed Titus and everyone that was inside the lodge that day. Well, almost everyone. William tells him that Mr. Braithwaite has called a meeting with all of the current lodge members, and they are all coming for dinner tonight. But until then, the home is theirs to enjoy. Tic tells William that after lunch, we would like to take a walk around the village. And William says that shouldn't be a problem as long as they're back home in time for dinner. He tells them if they need anything, just ring the butler. And Leti is surprised because she's like, oh, I thought you were the butler. And he tells her, no, he's just a very close friend of Miss Christina Braithwaite. Tic asks if that silver Bentley belonged to Miss Braithwaite, and William tells him that it does. William leaves, and the trio is left alone for lunch. Tic is highly suspicious of everything that's happening. He asks George, when have you ever showed up to a white man's house uninvited, and he didn't try to get you out of there in 2.5 seconds? Tic and George agree, and they suspect that Tic's father is actually somewhere on the property and not in Boston at all. Behind them, Leti has just started eating. She's like me. She's like, well, there's food. We can sit here and talk, but I'm going to sit down and eat.
Yeah, like you guys do what you got to do. I'm going to just be snacking over here. Don't mind me.
Exactly. So she started eating, and she rings the bell and to have the butler bring her some salt. And the two men, because they were talking like facing away from her, so they turn around and they look at her like she's crazy. And she's like, what? You know white folks don't be seasoning their food.
She's
So
not
Tic
wrong.
asked, back then, she's probably not wrong at all.
Yeah. I think times have changed a little
Times
for
have
some of
changed,
us,
yes.
but
Tic asked her how she can have an appetite after what they went through last night, and Leti starts to defend herself, but then she suddenly stops, and she has this look of confusion on her face, and she realizes that she has no memory of what happened last night. Tic is in disbelief and tells her that they were attacked, and Leti asks, oh, by the sheriff? And Tic says, no, by monsters. And Leti is very confused. She doesn't remember any monsters at all, and Tic starts to describe them to her. And he looks over at his Uncle George, and George is now confused too. And he says, the last thing I remember is waking up here this morning. So Tic starts to become frantic, trying to get them to remember and rehashing the previous night for them. George lets Tic know that they are being watched and he needs to calm down and just take a seat and eat lunch. So Tic sits and tells them we need to find Pop and get out of here. He tells them, the two of them, to search the lodge and he's going to go into the village. And Leti says, no, we should not split up. And George agrees with Leti. He says, we stay together and be cool because they have been very nice to us so far, so let's not give them a reason to stop being nice. They finish lunch, and the three of them head over to the garage to grab a vehicle to go into town. And in the garage, they see their car with Woody, and it's all fixed up like nothing happened. Because remember, she drove Woody through that building, through the
yes, and
house.
attracted
So
all those other monsters.
So it should be messed up, but it looks fine. It's all fixed up. George asks Tic, I thought you said the car crashed. And Tic says, it was, so this can't be our car. But inside the car, they find Leti's camera, and it's definitely Woody. At that moment, William pops up again, and William has like this ability. It's not real. I don't know, but he like apparates. He just appears and disappears. You never see him coming and going. He just pops in like he's in Harry Potter. And William tosses George the keys to their car, and he tells them he found their car just on the other side of the bridge and brought it here. Tic says that's impossible. It was wrecked. And William tells him, no, I drove it here just like this. So now he's gaslighting him, trying to tell him, none of what you believe happened. He tells Tic that there was quite a lot of blood in the front seat, but he had the butler wash it out. So Tic is doing that tight jaw clenching thing that actors do to show they're upset and hold back anger.
The facial acting.
Yeah, I love some jaw acting. And Jonathan Majors is a great jaw actor. I've seen him do it a lot. He tells George and Leti, let's just go ahead and go into town. So now they're walking around town and they pass some Amish or Quaker looking people, and Leti starts taking photos of them, which I thought was rude, but
Yeah, because they don't
yeah.
like their photo taken.
I don't know in this story, and I said that's what they look like. They're just dressed in that kind of garb. They might not actually be of any sort of religion at all, but they're just wearing.
But yeah, still, it's just a little rude to take pictures of strangers like that.
Right, yeah.
You're right.
But there's always those photographers that feel like they need to capture the human experience. I don't know. I just find it rude. But they don't seem to mind, and they just let him do it. And Tic walks ahead of them, and Leti takes this moment to ask George about what Tic went through during the war. He and George don't remember anything, so she's like, does he have some sort of PTSD or psychological trauma? Because the car clearly wasn't crashed, but there was blood in the car, and he's talking about monsters. So without them realizing it, Tic has overheard the conversation about him, and he snaps at them. He says this was not shell shock, which doesn't really help his case to just pop off at him like that because the way he just turned around, he's just screaming at him. He tells him he knows what he saw last night, and George tries to calm him down and lets him know they're just concerned about him.
Imagine seeing like monsters, seeing that chaos, and then everybody being like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
You know?
It's like, you guys were there. Like that
right. That would be
drive me
frustrating.
I actually would probably think I was crazy. But
I would
like
too.
That Tic just says, no, I saw what I saw.
Or that it was some crazy dream that you had. Yeah.
Or someone gave me acid or something. I was like, somebody slipped me something, because I definitely saw that.
Yep.
Like I've told you before, I always feel like the people on the streets that just start talking to themselves, I listen to them because sometimes I think they know what they're talking about.
You never know.
And I don't.
I'd assume,
like,
I know
you might be in the right and I am wrong.
Right.
So.
That's exactly how I feel. I know most people assume it's like drugs, but I'm like, they might be in tune with another dimension and they are warning us about something. So I listen.
Yep.
George tells him that his story just doesn't make much sense, and Tic points out a few other things that don't make sense and that they're overlooking, like the bookshelf in George's room, which has all of his favorite books, and a wardrobe filled with clothes that fit Leti perfectly. And suddenly they hear that same high-pitched whistle that they heard the night before that called off the monsters. And Tic takes off and runs towards the sound, and he finds a woman standing in front of a tower or like a grain silo or something, holding two large, very angry-looking German shepherds. Tic immediately starts confronting the woman, demanding to know what that whistle was for. Leti and George catch up with him and try to pull him away from the woman, and George asks the woman to call off her dogs and tells her that they are guests of Mr. Braithwaite. The woman immediately signals her dogs to calm down, and they do. She tells them that they don't look like Mr. Braithwaite's usual guests, and George asks the woman if she is the sheriff because she's standing in front of the only stone building that he has seen in this village so far, so he assumes it has to be the jail. And she laughs and opens the door to the tower, and we see these animal carcasses hanging, specifically pigs, and George tells her that he's heard about grizzlies in the surrounding area, and she tells him that they don't get grizzlies around here, just black bears. But the black bears are bad enough, she says. They're smart, but not too smart. They are beasts, but clever enough to cause mischief, and they are persistent, always sticking their noses where they don't belong. So we know what that was. What she's kind of hinting at. There might not be black bears specifically she's talking about. George side-eyes her quickly, realizing this metaphor isn't about the bears. He turns and walks away from her, and she tells him that they should head back to the lodge before sundown. They don't want to miss dinner. As the three walk away, George tells them that the inside of that silo has a stone foundation, which means there's likely a dungeon in the basement. Leti mentions that with all that barking, a person screaming for help would not be heard. So they think that there's a chance that Tic's dad, Montrose, is down there somewhere. The sun is quickly setting as the trio speed walk back through the woods back towards the lodge. George suddenly stops walking, and he's having a moment where a memory rushes back to him. He says he remembers something that Tic's mom once said about her ancestors. He said that her great ancestor was a slave named Hannah, and she escaped her master's house after a fire. Tic then remembers the secret birthright that his father wrote about, and George says Titus Braithwaite was known to be kind to his slaves. So they put two and two together, and they believe that Hannah escaped the Braithwaite's house while pregnant with Titus's baby, which so making Tic a descendant of that baby. Just then, that quiet moment is broken, and they hear the cracking sound followed by a rumbling in the woods, and before they can figure out what's happening, they see mounds of earth rise up like something's burrowing underneath it, a la Tremors.
Oh, I knew. That's exactly where my mind went immediately.
Yes, that's what I always think of whenever I see anything like that in a movie, because that freaks me out. And it's heading straight towards them. They start to run to escape towards the lodge, but the monsters, they're the same ones at the night before, start exploding up from the ground in front of them, and they block the route. Any route that they try to take, they're just all over the place, popping up out of the ground. And that's when that high-pitched whistle sound is heard again, and the monsters stop moving. And then they see a blonde white lady on a white horse ride up to them. She blows the whistles again, and the monsters take off. The blonde lady instructs someone to escort Tic to her father's lab and get the other two back to their rooms. As she turns to ride off, we see that the person she has given the instructions to is that same angry woman with the German shepherds. Leti and George's memories of the monsters suddenly disappear again when we hear George ask, "Why are we covered in dirt?" And Leti is just as perplexed. The lady with the dog tells them to follow her, and she leads them back to the lodge. So I'm thinking, Allison, I don't know if this is what you thought, that whistle also affects certain people's memory too.
It might, yeah.
He
That
calls
would
the
make
monsters
sense.
on and off, but it also does something to people's brains, I guess.
Like a trigger.
Like the Men in Black, the
Yeah, like
little
a
light
flash.
thing. Yeah.
Back in the lodge, Tic walks into the lab to speak to Miss Braithwaite, the blonde lady on the horse. And this is the same blonde lady that we saw get out of that silver, I think Kristen calls it a Rolls Royce, I call it a Bentley. I know they're two different cars now, but back during the time, Rolls Royce owned Bentley, so I think we can use them interchangeably. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
but yeah, in '99 they became two different companies. I think the show does it too. So,
Hmm.
and she sees an older white gentleman laying on the table, and he's in this lab, and he's screaming. He's awake while someone is also dressed in these wizard robes and hood is removing an organ from his abdomen. So he's having surgery while awake, and he's just screaming. Tic sees Miss Braithwaite just beyond the surgery pouring herself a drink from the cart. Back in his room, George is trying his hardest to remember what happened. They were walking in the woods, and then he remembered being escorted to the lodge. Huge chunks of time are missing, and he mumbles to himself, if Tic's related, then Montreux, Tic's dad, is just bait to get them there. George then spots the book on the shelf titled The House on the Borderlands and Other Novellas. And when he removes this book from the shelf, a secret door opens. This door leads him to a much bigger and even more impressive library. And on the table in that library is the book, The Order of the Ancient Dawn. Back in the lab, the man on the table who was screaming is now quiet and all sewn back up. And Tic stands there watching, and the man on the table sits up and says to Miss Braithwaite, "He's darker than I expected." He gets up, holding his surgical scar, and walks towards Tic and starts telling him about the paintings in the room. And this man is Samuel Braithwaite, and he's played by Tony Goldwyn, a.k.a. President Fitzgerald from Scandal.
Yes.
He tells them the painting is called Genesis 2:19 and asks if either of them know the verse. Miss Braithwaite, who we will soon find out is his daughter named Christina, responds by reciting the Bible verse, which is about Adam naming all of the creatures of the earth. He asks Christina what the verse means. What did Adam do? This time, Tic answered and says he put everything in its place. Samuel remarks that at the dawn of time, for a brief moment, everything was as it should be. It was nirvana. Christina then says, until that bitch Eve started messing everything up, and since then it's been a mess of tribes and nations.
That's funny.
She adds, but of course, it didn't really happen that way. Biblical realism is for the simple. Tic asks Samuel if in the parable he sees himself as God, and Samuel says, no, I'm Adam, and I've been working long and hard to return to paradise. He tells Tic that his daughter believes Tic can help him achieve this goal. Tic asks Samuel to just tell him where his father is, and they'll leave and they'll be on their way. Samuel turns and walks away from them and tells Christina that he doesn't want to see Tic again until the ceremony at dawn. Christina leads Tic back to his room and asks Tic if he has any questions, and he says, well, why bother? You haven't been answering any of them. No one has. And Christina warns that her father and the other lodge members are very dangerous enemies to have. Tic accuses Christina of putting a spell on George and Leti to make them forget. He says it seems the KKK are just calling themselves Grand Wizards anymore. Christina tells them that her father and the other members would never fraternize with the KKK. They're too poor. She said, I like that moment. She says the spell wasn't specifically a target for George and Leti. It works with anyone who sees the monsters and lives to tell about it. She tells Tic that they have been helping them and they can be friends, but she can't take him to his father. So Tic says, fine, you want to be friends, remove the spell from George and Leti. And she thinks for a moment and says, okay, done. And then seconds later, we hear Leti and George screaming as all of their memories have just come back to them.
Oh, no.
Tic tries to rush out of his room to them to help them, but he's blocked by this invisible force field and he can't leave. Just then, this little Newsies-looking boy runs up to Christina and tells her, it's time. Christina runs out to the barn, and there is a cow in labor. The farmhand tells her that the baby is breech, and Christina gets in there to help, and she delivers a calf. But what comes out is not a calf at all. It's a baby form of one of their monsters.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yes.
creepy.
It is, and it's not like even some of the ugliest things when it's a baby, it's kind of cute. This thing is not cute at all.
No.
So, just so you know, there's no little cute little alien looking thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the farmhands that are there for the birth, they smile though, and they're looking like this thing is adorable. And I guess these births like this were commonplace, but this is Christina's first time assisting in a birth. It seems the female cows are used as gestational surrogates for these creatures, so I think they're just like impregnating the cows
Right.
with these monsters. Back in the lodge, Leti is trying to break the lock in her room with a knife when Tic comes in. She tells them that she is so sorry and she remembers everything now. And Tic sits her down and tells her they're trapped and they can't get out. And they sit in front of this painting of Adam and Eve about to have sex, but Adam's penis is a serpent.
I've never seen that before.
And yeah, as again, artists back then were wild. So Leti comments how the Bible is full of demons. Tic starts to recite Psalms 23:4, that yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death one. And Leti remembers reciting that the night that they were first attacked by the monsters and the police. Tells Leti that he is never going to abandon her again, and the two of them start to kiss. The camera pulls out of her room outside to above the lodge, and it sweeps all the way around to the other side of the house to this other window, which would be basically right across the hall from Leti. And that's where we see Tic with his ear pressed up against the wall, sending Morse code messages through the wall to his Uncle George on the other side. So that is not Tic in Leti's room at all. George writes down the word wizards as he deciphers the code. Tic hears another sound coming from the wardrobe in his room, and then shooting starts. He dives behind the couch in his room as a Korean woman busts out of his wardrobe with 2 guns and starts shooting at him.
What in the world? There is a lot of stuff happening.
They're messing with them, yeah.
It's crazy.
The two of them tussle as Tic tries to get the guns away from her, and in this fight, Tic addresses the woman by name, calling her Jia. So Tic is having some very real hallucination about something that happened to him during the Korean War. Really, all 3 of them are having hallucinations because now we see that George is in his room seeing a vision of Tic's mom, who we know has died. So it seems that George and Tic's mom had a little romance. And I didn't pick up on when, and Allison, I don't know if you did either. I don't know if it was before she and Montrose got together and before they had Tic, or was it during their marriage? I'm thinking maybe during. I don't know.
I don't know.
I couldn't really tell. But like during their marriage, but before he was married to his wife is when I'm thinking it happened, but I don't know.
I'm not sure.
So George and Dora, Tic's mom, are dancing together, and Dora comments how everything they used to dream about as kids is possible now. George takes a step away from her and tells her, "You're not real." We then get a quick check-in with everyone's hallucinations, and they're all starting to realize that they aren't real. Tic is trying to have sex with Leti, or the Tic hallucination, and she wants him to stop, and he unzips his pants, and the serpent comes out, just like in the painting, and tries to attack her. And then in Tic's room, fighting with the Korean woman, he chokes her to death. And then Dora has now disappeared from George's room, just as suddenly as she showed up. We see George walk to the spot in the room where Dora has first appeared, and it looks like he is seeing something, but we can't tell. And the camera pulls back, and we see this glowing doorway that's like some sort of magical portal, but like two-way mirror-looking thing. And Christina's created that, or else it's just part of the spells of the house. And we see that she and other lodge members can watch what's going on. So the men are there having their little cocktail hour, and it's almost like a little show. They can see each person in their room freaking out as they're hallucinating, almost like they set it up just for an entertainment.
That reminds me of an episode of The King of Queens. I'm sorry, but
I love how you can relate everything to the King of Queens.
I can, honestly, almost every day I think of an episode that something I see or something that happens relates to. But there's one where they put a camera down in Arthur's room so that they can keep an eye on him. And at some point, like Doug and all of his friends are just sitting in the garage, like watching him do his laundry and stuff, like a reality show. It's very funny. But anyway.
So soon a bell rings and all the spells are broken. And Tic, Leti, and George are able to get out of their rooms. And William meets them in the hallway and informs them that dinner will be served in 15 minutes. And the attire is black tie only. He tells Leti that dinner is also men only, so she will not be joining them this evening. Tic asks George, "Who did they make you see?" And George just shakes his head and says it doesn't matter. And they're just trying to get in our heads and break us. Tic starts to tear up, telling them about how he saw something bad and he remembered from the war. George tells Tic, "You're a good man. Don't let them make you question yourself." George pulls the three of them together into a hug and whispers to them that he has come across something that just might help them get out of there. George and Tic now arrive to the dinner party escorted by William. So now there are these two black men at this dinner party, and they're the only two black men in the room, and there's a bunch of rich old white men. William tells them, just because some of them may not want you here doesn't mean you don't deserve to be here. Then Samuel enters the room in his wizard's robes. Everyone else is in black tie, but he's in this robe, and he dresses the crowd, telling them about the true meaning of sacrifice. He talks about how their mission is to right a wayward world, and how the original OG Titus Braithwaite gave himself to empower the founding members of the order. As he continues speaking, the first dish is served. Samuel says, "Just like Titus gave of himself, I am honored to give of myself." And we see that this first dish is this amuse-bouche of what looks to be raw meat, raw liver perhaps, and perhaps the same liver that we saw being extracted from Samuel earlier in the episode.
No.
Yes. So Tic looks at George and tells him, "Don't eat that." So, I mean, they made it look very fancy on the plate, but, I wouldn't. It might not be that, but I would do the same thing. Be like, I'm not eating that after what I just saw.
No.
Samuel thanks everyone for coming and takes a seat. That's when George stands up and says, "No need to thank us. We don't even want to be here." And George starts walking around the room like he's that guy in the, I don't know if you've ever been to one of these, but I have. But there's always like a guy in the murder mystery dinner parties that's figured it all out, and he just starts, talking to everybody. He wants to win the game, and he's usually wrong because he's the first guy to guess, but he's like walking around. And so that's what George is doing. And he says he knows that they are all members of a group called the Order of the Ancient Dawn, and that he happened to find their book on their bylaws earlier today. He says in their bylaws that the men of color are not allowed into this order, but then he also noticed a loophole in there as well. It states that all men that are direct descendants of Titus Braithwaite are automatically members. Honored members, in fact, known as sons among sons. He tells the men that his nephew Atticus, Tic, just might be the last blood heir to Titus Braithwaite, and that according to the bylaws, he has the ability to give orders to the other members. So they test this theory, and Tic gets up and tells everyone except for Samuel to get up and leave the room. And of course, nothing happens. None of the white men even so much as look like they're about to get up. And then Tic walks over to the head table where Samuel is seated and gets close to the men and says, "Gentlemen, that's an order." And then, reluctantly, all of them get up and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Once the men are gone, Tic tells Samuel, "I order you to return my father to me." Samuel puts on his glasses and stands to address Tic directly, and he tells Tic that he is not a zealot of this order. His beliefs and traditions go as far as what the others choose to follow. Samuel tells him that Titus used the book of names to put spells on his body to be more powerful, and some of the power has trickled down to Tic. Whatever remaining power is in there is probably diluted and tainted, but it's still useful for the work Samuel needs to do. But Samuel warns Tic not to mistake being useful for being indispensable. The next scene cuts to Tic and George in that stone tower in the village, looking for Montrose. The lady caretaker with the dogs catches them in there and pulls a gun on them, and she's planning to capture them and feed them to her dogs. When out of nowhere, Leti shows up and knocks the woman out with a shovel. So I don't know how this cut happens. It's just like they're at dinner. I guess a few hours later, they sneak out and go to this tower. We get all that skipped. We're just there, and I don't know where Leti came from to get behind her to be able to knock her out. But just go with it.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's one
It's
of the
part of the fantasy.
one of the suspension of disbelief moments. You just got to go with it. Yeah. George mumbles the words "Count of Monte Cristo," which is Montrose's favorite book, and he begins feeling the stone walls, trying to find a loose stone. He finds one and he pulls it out, and it reveals a very narrow tunnel. And then it cuts to a close-up shot of the ground outside of the tower, and we see hands coming up from out of the earth, followed by a head, and it's Montrose. And he's played by Michael Kenneth Williams. And if you've seen The Wire, it's Omar. Just to make that connection for
I
people.
haven't seen The Wire, but I've heard such good things about it. Everybody loves it.
Mm-hmm. He pulls himself up and out of the ground while his hands are still handcuffed together, and he silently celebrates his freedom. And when he turns around, he sees Leti, Tic, and George. Montrose asks him why they're here, and George says to save him. Montrose says he didn't need them, he could save himself. Tic tells him that he got this letter Whitey wrote for him, and he's supposed to come find him. And so Montrose is annoyed by this because they haven't spoken in over 5 years. He never thought that Tic would be stupid enough to come looking for him just because he wrote a letter under duress. Leti tells him that they need to get going. And she has the car. And she has chosen, instead of their car, Woody, she's decided, I'm just going to take Christina's Bentley, which, why not? You know, she found the keys to that, so that's the car she chose, and they take off. And so they're speeding out of town while George tells them all of the history that he has learned so far in that book about the Order. And he's talking as they cross over the bridge that will take them officially off of the Braithwaite land. And that's where their car slams into an invisible force field and wrecks the car. So like accordions in the front, and it stops them from leaving. A black car pulls up behind the wrecked Bentley, and Samuel and Christina get out of the car, and they walk over to the wreckage as they see Tic and Montrose stumble from the back seat. Leti pulls herself from the driver's seat, and as soon as she stands up, Samuel shoots her in the stomach. Tic runs over to help her, and George is the last to get out of the car, and he's in a daze. And then Samuel shoots, and he shoots at his feet and warns him not to come any closer. Tic calls out for Christina to help Leti. He begs her, but Christina stays silent as Leti goes unconscious. Tic turns to Samuel in anger, and Samuel tells him that he will give him a choice as to who he will let survive this escape attempt. Tic doesn't answer quick enough, and Samuel raises the gun and shoots. And the screen goes black, so we don't see who he shot. The next scene is Tic getting a sponge bath from 3 maids as they clean all the blood off of him, while Christina watches. Tic asks her what's going to happen in the ceremony. She tells him that her father is planning to open a door to the Garden of Eden when man was immortal. He believes that when he steps through this portal into the garden, he will have eternal life. Tic finds out why he is brought there. The last man who attempted the spell best was Titus, and her father thinks that the blood of the most powerful of the Order will help him finally achieve this. In this room, there's, again, one of those magical 2-way mirrors, and Tic watches as George and Leti are healing from the shooting and the accident, and Montrose is in there with them. So he's just kind of watching them in this room trying to get better. But Montrose is unharmed. He's fine. It seems that Tic has made a deal that if he willingly participates in this ceremony, his friends and family will be fully healed. Christina gives Tic his official Order member's ring, so they have these little rings that they all wear. And she comments that no matter how hard she's tried, she could never earn one of these. But Tic gets it just by being born a man, and not even a white man. She places the ring on his finger and lets him know that our destinies are not determined by our ancestors. The smallest, most inconsequential thing can set your life on a new path. You just have to recognize the moment and seize it. George and Montrose have a nice little brotherly moment as George tries to convince Montrose to break a window and escape and take Leti with them. Montrose has no intention of leaving without his brother. They talk about old times and apologize for childhood traumas, and George tells Montrose about how he should be kinder to Tic, which Montrose snaps at him, saying, "How many times do I need to tell you to stop telling me how I should raise my son?" And George tells Montrose, "He might not be yours." So now we learn that the fling... Okay, so now that is when we learn what the fling happened while they were married, while they were already together.
Right, okay.
But I don't believe George was with his wife yet. I think George was single at the time. I don't know if that... Now that makes it even better. I believe that's how it worked out. Montrose tells him, "We settled that long ago and agreed to never speak about it again." George tells him, "I have to talk about it now because soon you might be all Tic has left." We now go over to the ceremony beginning, so the sun is rising. As we watch Tic walk into this domed room, led in and followed by 2 white men, we hear this voiceover recording of someone reading that poem, Whitey on the Moon. Tic stands in the center of this room in front of Samuel, while the fellow Order brothers are lined up around the room around him, because it's a curved room, so they're just kind of lined up against the wall. All Order members are dressed in these wizard's robes, and Samuel walks around and touches these 3 electric spheres. So to better describe it, they have Tic in the middle in like a triangle form. There's these 3 spheres, and they have those like electric charges going. Yeah, so he touches them, and as soon as he does, they light up and they connect with one another. So they now have trapped him in this triangle. And once they all connect, Tic starts to cry out in pain from the center of them as we see shimmery gold dust particles start to emerge from him like some sort of aura. And Samuel begins to chant his spell in a language we don't know. And this gold aura dust from Tic now causes an archway to glow and fill with that shimmering gold. And it looks like fire as different runes that have been carved into the wood of this archway start to glow. From the archway, we see these beautiful flowers and vines start to sprout up and grow out of the archway onto the ground towards Tic. The vines and flowers now surround the archway, and we can see that the Garden of Eden is coming through this portal into this time and dimension that Tic and Samuel are in.
Oh.
Tic looks down at his ring and he sees what looks like black smoke tendrils crawling from the ring and growing and wrapping themselves around Tic's arm and crawling to cover his whole body. Through the portal, there's a little break and Tic can see this woman. And it's this black woman and she's very pregnant and she's standing there looking at him. And then wind in the room starts picking up as the chanting continues and everything is growing and becoming more intense. The entire lodge starts to shake and crumble around them as this powerful spell keeps growing. Tic is now calmer and no longer in pain and stands in the middle of this crazy spell's vortex, and he keeps staring at the pregnant woman, and we get the sense that this woman is his great-great-great-great-grandmother, which would be the slave that gave birth to Titus's child. Sensing that this building is about to be done for, some of the order members flee from the room, and we see Leti, Montrose, and George get up and help each other to try to get out of this shaky house as well. But Samuel continues chanting the spell, which has now hit this fever pitch, and suddenly Tic screams and uses all of his might to break the chain and the spell that it was creating through the room and threw him into the garden and the archway. So everything just kind of explodes. So the archway shuts and it burns and the whole room just kind of goes dark for a second. And as he lets out this yell and everything is kind of broken, the spell's broken, we see that all the order members instantly turn to ash as some of them are trying to run away, and the dome room starts to cave in on itself. And Tic runs out of the room just in time. Soon the rest of the house caves in as Tic runs for safety, following closely behind the apparition of the pregnant woman running through the fire as she's showing him the way out. The same way that she escaped the home all those years ago when Titus attempted the same spell, causing the same destruction, killing everyone inside. So his ancestor helps him escape in this time, and when he gets outside, he sees Leti and Montrose and George out there as well, so they've also made it out. And at some point, they've gotten their car, they have Woody, and they are ready for their escape. But unfortunately, George wasn't healed enough to safely make the run out of the house, and his body could not take the strain. And George is laying in the backseat of the car, dead, in his brother's arms.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And Tic sees George and he just begins to cry uncontrollably and he's apologizing to them over and over. I'm sorry, Uncle George. Keeps saying that over and over as the Leon Bridges song River plays in the background and the screen goes black. So that's how that one ends.
Another cliffhanger.
Yep. It's full of them. This was a lot of visual and not a lot of talking as much in this episode or like the storytelling.
Mhm.
But I really liked how they did that, him seeing the vision of his ancestors escaping the same fire and just like following her out. Like
Mhm.
once he made that connection that this woman is here, she went through the same thing and she's going to lead me out of there. And I think that's why he calmed down during the spell once he realized who that was.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of gave him the strength to break it.
Mhm.
So,
Man, there was a
Very
lot
cool.
going on in this episode. Like a lot of things just
Yeah.
coming out of left field, it felt like.
Yeah, this story jumps around a lot. So it's kind of, I
Mhm.
think we go to a whole new setting in the next episode. So we're done with that house in the
Is them
woods.
forgetting like the prior day or like the traumatic events that happened or the monsters or what have you? Is that a theme through the whole show? Is that something that continues to happen?
I don't think
so.
so.
Okay,
I don't
I
think
was
so.
just
You
wondering
will
if it
see
was.
Christina follows, she's the only other survivor, and we don't know this yet, but I guess I'll just go ahead and tell you. Christina survived.
Mhm.
I'm assuming after she got Tic dressed and ready to go to the ceremony, she bounced. I don't think she
Mhm.
I don't think she even stuck around for the thing. She just calmly probably walked out of the house. So
Right.
she kind of keeps the magic and mystery going, but I don't believe she causes any more forgetfulness that I can
Mhm.
remember. I'll let you know because I'll
Gotcha.
continue to watch
Okay.
it, but I don't from what I can remember. And I'm trying to like not continue to binge them each time and just kind of watch it one by one. So I
Right.
can't remember everything. So yeah.
There's a lot going on, a lot to know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes. Thanks everyone for joining us and listening to the story. And we'll be back next week with episode 3 of Lovecraft Country.
awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yes. Bye.
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 For more information about our episodes, follow us on Instagram at Fear and Wine Pod. And if you have a fun discussion question that you'd like for us to answer on the podcast, send it to us at fearandwinepod@gmail.com.